Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. A few weeks ago, I started taking a hard look at my bookshelf. First, we talked about all the books that arrived in the last 6 months. Then we went through a difficult process of deciding which books no longer deserve its place on my shelf. But getting the books in and out was never really the point, because after the unhaul, I was left with the same question. What should this bookshelf actually be? A trophy cabinet, a collection, or should it reflect what I am as a reader right now? So today is the final part of this mini-series where I am going to rearrange my shelf completely. I want to find a way for my books, my Gundams, my plants, or any other hobbies to coexist peacefully in one place. A bookshelf isn't just organized but feels intentional. Let's see if we can make it happen. But before we start to move everything around, maybe it is worthwhile to take a look at the current setup. Now, at the first glance, this bookcase looks massive. And every time I show it on my camera, you would probably be thinking, oh Dan, you still got quite a lot of space. But the reality is, I only own half of the shelf. Everything beyond my section, beyond my boundary doesn't belong to me, so the amount of space I have is more limited than it looks, which is probably why I have reached the point. Over the last 6 months, books have been coming in faster than they are leaving. I have added subscription books, special editions, new release, and series continuation. Although I do love a lot of these books, somehow along the way the shelf doesn't really feel intentional. Some shelves have become catch-all spaces, some books are hidden behind some books, some unread books are sitting somewhere that I can never really see, and some of my favorite series are taking up prime real estate simply because they have always been there. So before I start moving everything around, I want to establish some rules for future me. Rule number 1, unread books have to be visible. I have realized if an unread book disappears in the background, it is quite likely that I will completely forget about its existence. Rule number 2, complete a series, moving to less accessible space. Once I finish a series, logically I don't need to take them in and out of my shelf constantly. Rule number 3, the shelves behind me should reflect my current reading priorities, not just about my own collection. Rule number 4, every shelf should have a purpose. No more random books filling up the gaps just because there are space there. With those rules in mind, let's take a look at what we are dealing with. First of all, let's get you down to here. Starting at the bottom, this is actually one of the very few shelves that actually worked quite well. The lowest shelf is mainly for storage, so you can see a couple of great boxes and some of my final collection. Right above it, I have my paperback collection, fantasy, romance, horror, literacy fiction. Basically all paperbacks that don't naturally fit with my hardcover collections. I like this shelf because it is practical. Everything fits well, everything is accessible, and these are all the books that I intend to keep. So I don't think there's much change needed with this shelf. Moving up to the shelf that basically sits behind my Gundam. Let me push it up a bit. This is where the first problem appears. At the first glance, you can already tell this Gundam occupies a lot of visual space. It is as big as my head. One head, 2 heads. Which means all the books behind are quite difficult to access. Originally, this is where I kept my Crescent City series, but after the unhaul, it has freed up quite a lot of space. What I have realized is that if I want this Gundam to be here, all the books behind should be books that I wouldn't take in and out too often. Completed series, books that I love, books that have already earned its place. There's no point in putting any active reading projects right behind my Gundam unless I want to make my life miserable. The next shelf up is actually one of the most important ones because it is almost visible in every video I make. Currently, I keep my completed Echo Saga, Empire of the Vampire, Bloodstone Saga, and some standout favorites. But I think this shelf has to be more intentional. If it is one of the most visible part of my collection, I wanted to either showcase books that I love or series I'm trying to continue. At the moment, the Echo Saga is actually taking up quite a lot of space. I am incredibly proud of finishing all these 9 books, but it seems to make more sense to turn this series into a display piece, while this shelf becomes an active reminder of the ongoing trilogies or quartets that I need to tackle. Moving up, it is mostly my Broken Binding trilogy shelf, and honestly this is one of the sections that I'm happiest with. These editions look beautiful, they share similar design language, and together they look like a collection. The only change I may make is to separate the completed series from the unread ones, so that the books I am actively working on can be easier to identify. Above that is what I have always thought of as my Asian-inspired shelf. A lot of that I have already read and loved, and that is the reason why they have survived so many unhauls. But recently I've been adding some unread books here, and that's the reason why this shelf started to lose a bit of its identity. So maybe the solution is to let this shelf focus on books series that I have experienced and enjoyed, while moving away active reading projects somewhere more visible. Which brings to me what I think should become the most important part of this entire bookcase: the shelf right above my TV. Right now, it is like a mix of completed series, current series, and books I have caught up on. But I want to rebrand this shelf completely. I want this to become books I need to work on shelf. Every time I reach for my TBR jar, every time I sit down and read, every time I walk into this living room, I want to be reminded of those series that I need to tackle. Inheritance Cycle, The Forsaken, Malison, all the series like this. If a book lives on here, it's because future Dan needs to read them. Then let's see, can I raise you up to the top shelf? If not, I need to come up with a solution. It looks absurd because I'm absolutely tiny, never like this before. So now we have reached the top shelf. At the moment, it is a mixture of Wheel of Time, Brandon Sanderson, J.T. Greathouse, and any other finished books. And honestly, I think the best use of these shelves is to turn them into a statement piece. Long completed series, favorite authors, the books that represent milestone in my reading life. Wheel of Time definitely belongs here. Finishing that series is still one of my proudest achievements in my entire reading life. And maybe this is where Brandon Sanderson, Robin Hobb, or any other larger completed series should live here as well. Not because they are priorities, but because they have already earned their place. Finally, we have the shelf right next to it, the uncharted territory. Finally, we have this top shelf. And if I'm being honest, this is probably the shelf that failed its purpose the most. Originally, this was supposed to be my Fairy Loot YA review shelf, but the problem is that project has never happened. Most of the books here are unread. And because they are quite high up, it is actually quite hard to reach every book, which completely defeats its point. If I'm serious to read any of these books, they need to come down somewhere that is more visible. And that is really the theme of this whole rearrangement, making sure all the books that I need to read are impossible to ignore. So now, I guess we should start working. First of all, let's take away these 2 Gundams so I can really work on the shelf behind. So this top shelf has been emptied, and I'm thinking to put my Echo Saga up there. It looks like a statement piece. Moving down for this empty spots, I'm thinking to put any unread books that I need to catch up on this shelf. They are the priorities. But I'm still thinking what to fill up here and here. So these are all the books that I have read, and these are all that I still need to work on. And I'm low-key in a panic mode because I have no idea how should I sort them out. This is my new rearrangement, guys. Finally, it's done. Alright, everything is finally back on the shelf. I'm not going to lie, halfway through this process, I genuinely thought I had made a mistake. There were books all over the floor, Gundams everywhere, piles of special editions stacked on top of each other, and I wasn't entirely convinced everything's going to fit. I think this feels much closer to the bookshelf that I actually wanted. So let's go back to all the rules that I have set right before the makeover and see if I have achieved all of them. Rule number 1. Unread books must be visible. This is probably the biggest change. All of my unread priority books are now sitting in the center of the bookcase where I can actually see all of them. Before this rearrangement, they were literally everywhere. Some were on the very top shelf, some were hidden behind the other books, some were mixed up with completed series, and because they were spread out, I genuinely had no idea the exact number of unread books that I actually owned. One thing that surprised me during this process was gathering all of them together. It was honestly a bit of reality check. And because now they are all in the same place, I can't pretend anymore. At the same time, this process made me rethink a couple of books and let me pick them up for you. Firstly, I have Happy Place by Emily Henry. I still want to read it, but I don't think I need to own it physically. If I ended up loving Emily Henry's book, I can definitely collect them later. For now, I would like to start this book on my Kobo and decide whether should I continue with her later. And the second one is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I have mentioned before that I'm a little bit intimidated by how long this series would eventually become. And while I'm still interested in reading it, I've realized that I don't necessarily need to commit any shelf space to a series that I haven't even started yet. So this whole rearrangement wasn't just about moving books around, it was also about deciding which books belong to my collection. Rule number 2, completed series become display pieces. This rule was much easier to achieve. The longer completed series are now resting on the top shelf where they can act as display pieces. These are books that have already earned their place. I don't need to take them down every month. I'm not actively working on them. They are here because they represent important parts of my reading journey. Brandon Sanderson, Robin Hobb, Wheel of Time, as well as the Echoes saga. Looking at them all together feels like looking at the timeline of my reading life. Rule number 3, the shelf behind me should represent my reading taste. Over the last few years, I have realized that this bookshelf isn't just something I look at. It is something all of you will see whenever you watch my videos. So instead of having random books occupying the most visible space, I want my bookshelf to reflect what I actually love. The fantasy series that shape my reading, my favorite authors, the books that make me keep collecting them in the first place. I also wanted to make room for my other hobbies. Reading is still my main hobby. Starting from last year, I picked up building Gundams again, and plants are always one of my favorite hobbies. So I wanted those parts of my personality exist here as well, not as an afterthought but as part of the overall space. I think the balance is much better now. Rule number 4. Every shelf should have its purpose. This was probably the most important rule. Starting from the bottom, the paperback shelf is actually largely unchanged because it already had a purpose. It's practical, organized, and houses books that naturally fit in here. Although I will admit, seeing the name of the win here makes me wonder, should I still keep it? Because where is book 3? It's still a mystery. And then we'll move up to my Gundam shelf. The Gundams are staying here because they are one, visually striking, and also they help to break down the massive stacks of books behind. The LED light from my Unicorn Gundam also helps to brighten up this dark corner. Behind them, I put books that I have already read and loved. Books that doesn't need to be constantly taken in and out. One change from the original plan is that I have put all my RF Kwan books down here from up the shelves. As I was running out of spaces, I had to adapt. And honestly, I think that makes sense because she is an author that I read extensively and trust completely. Moving up, I have what I consider as my visible favorite shelf. The shelf that you probably see a lot in all my videos. You may have noticed there's like a suspiciously large gap right next to my Bloodstone Saga, but don't worry guys, this space is reserved. The Broken Binding set of the Faithful and the Fallen should be arriving soon, so I do want to make sure I have enough space for all my John Gwyn's books to live together. For now, my Strike Freedom and a Police Saga is guarding this space for me. Above that is my Broken Binding shelf. This is one of the very few shelves that barely change anything because I think it serves its purpose beautifully. It is my special edition shelf. The books look beautiful together and create a cohesive collection. The only thing I will do in the future is to separate the completed series from the unread ones, and we will see.
The only change I may make is to separate the completed series from the unread ones.
Originally, the next shelf up should be my Asian-inspired shelf, but after moving things around, it has evolved into something slightly different. Which brings us to what is now the most important shelf of the entire bookcase, my unread shelf or unread shelves. Let me put it down better. Because I totally underestimated how many unread books I will have. The shelf right above my TV wasn't large enough to hold everything, so I have expanded it into the neighboring shelf as well. By putting a Gundam model between these two sections, it helps to preserve part of its original shelf identity while giving my unread books some little space. Most importantly, they are hard to ignore now. Whenever I pull a book from the TBR jar, whenever I sit down and read, whenever I walk into this room, they are right here exactly where they should be. Moving up to the top shelves, they are now dedicated to my favorite authors and non-running series. Brandon Sanderson, J.T. Greathouse, and James Arlington, authors whose books I consistently enjoy and whose collection continue to grow. I didn't expect I have so many James Arlington books. The shelf next to it still largely belongs to The Wheel of Time, one of my biggest reading achievements in my life. But now I have also made room for Robin Hobb. With the upcoming Enigma Crate, Live Ship Traders trilogy, I think it is the perfect opportunity to really plan ahead. I mean, those are 3 chunky books. And finally, on the very far side of the top shelf, my Echo Saga finally found its home. I really love how close it is sitting right next to my Wheel of Time. Together, they felt like a shelf dedicated to my reading milestone. Series that challenged me and series that stay with me. And hopefully there will be more additions in the future. Going into this challenge, I thought the biggest problem would be shelf space. But after finishing the book haul, unhaul, and now the rearrangement, I don't really think shelf space was the real issue. The real problem is visibility. I had books hidden everywhere, unread books mixed up with completed series, priority reads buried behind special editions, books I no longer enjoy taking up space that could have been used more intentionally. This rearrangement helped me to confront all of that, and it also helped me to realize something. I have more unread books than I expected. I mean, way more. Which means I need to be more selective going forward. As someone who is now trying branching out beyond fantasy into mystery, thriller, contemporary, or any other genres, I am more comfortable in reading digitally first. That's why you will see me use my Kobo more and more in the future, because physical space is limited and every new book has to justify their place. The same lesson applies to my other hobby as well. No matter it is books, Gundams, plants, they are all compete for the same space. And that helped me realize collecting isn't just about owning. It is about being intentional about what do you want to keep. After all this book hauls, book unhauls, and now the bookcase rearrangement, I think I have finally achieved what I wanted. Not the most perfect bookshelf setup because honestly, that doesn't exist, right? And I'm pretty sure in the near future, I'll start moving things around again. But for now, every shelf has a purpose. The books I want to read are visible. The books I love have already earned their place. And the shelves feel like they are representing who I am right now as a reader. The next challenge isn't reorganizing the shelves, but actually reading the books on them. Especially the unread shelf sitting right in the middle of this entire room. So if you have any recommendation about where to start, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment below. So thank you for following this little fun mini-series, and I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. So if you don't want to miss out any TBR, wrap-up, or fun idea like this one, a bookshelf reorganization, make sure you have subscribed to my channel and like this video. I'll see you all real soon. Goodbye.